8 Guys, one of the biggest boy bands on the planet. Millions of fans dissecting every live stream, every interview, every whispered word caught on a fan cam. And yet, not a single confirmed dating story. Zero. In an era where a blurry photo at a convenience store can trend worldwide in minutes, Stray Kids have managed something almost statistically impossible: complete radio silence on their romantic lives. Now, some fans chalk it up to luck, others say it's just good management, but when you dig into the actual mechanics, the contracts, the cultural machinery, the personal choices these 8 men make every single day, the real answer is far more layered and, honestly, far more human than most people expect. Why would a group of men in their mid-20s, at the absolute height of their fame and earning power, collectively choose to keep this part of their lives invisible? Is it fear, strategy, or something that says more about the K-pop industry itself than it does about them? Today, we're breaking down 7 facts that explain exactly what's going on behind closed doors. And number 2, it might genuinely change the way you think about what it costs to be an idol.
Number 7. Strict agency contracts and rules that cannot be broken. To understand why Stray Kids guard their personal lives so tightly, you first need to understand the machine they operate inside. And that machine has a name: JYP Entertainment. Founded in 1997 by Park Jin-young, one of South Korea's most iconic singer-songwriters, JYP Entertainment grew into one of the big 4 K-pop agencies, alongside SM, YG, and HYBE. This isn't some indie label running out of a basement. As of 2024, JYP Entertainment's market capitalization hovered around 2 to 3 trillion Korean won, roughly 1.5 to 2.3 billion US dollars. The company manages some of the most commercially dominant acts in Korean pop history: TWICE, GOT7, 2PM, ITZY, and of course, Stray Kids. When an organization this size sets internal rules, those rules carry weight, real weight. Now, here's where it gets specific. JYP Entertainment has long operated under what insiders and former trainees describe as a structured behavioral code for its artists. Park Jin-young himself has spoken publicly about his philosophy multiple times. In various interviews and on his own reality content, he's outlined what he considers non-negotiable expectations for JYP artists: no smoking, no drinking excessively, no clubbing in ways that damage the company image, and, critically, no public romantic relationships, especially in the early stages of an artist's career. This isn't unique to JYP. The Korean entertainment industry at large has historically embedded dating restrictions into trainee and artist contracts. These clauses typically don't say you can never date. What they usually stipulate is that artists must inform management before entering a relationship, must not be seen publicly in ways that could trigger scandal, and, in many cases, must refrain entirely from romantic involvement for a set number of years after debut. The exact duration varies by company and by contract, but industry analysts and former idols who've spoken out, like former SM artist Amber Liu and former Cube trainee turned soloist Hyunjin, have confirmed that these windows typically range from 2 to 5 years post-debut. Stray Kids debuted on March 25, 2018. That means if a standard restriction window applied, the earliest any member could have freely dated without potential contractual friction would have been somewhere around 2020 to 2023. But here's the thing: even after those initial restriction windows close, the culture inside these agencies doesn't just evaporate. The behavioral expectations are deeply internalized. Trainees at JYP go through a notoriously rigorous multi-year training system before they ever see a stage. Some of the Stray Kids members trained for 3, 4, even 5 years before debuting. Bong Chan, the group's leader, entered JYP as a trainee in 2010, a full 8 years before Stray Kids officially launched. That's
8 years of living inside a system that reinforces discipline, image control, and the idea that personal sacrifice is the price of the dream. And it's not just abstract pressure, there are practical consequences. When a JYP artist is found violating company guidelines, the repercussions can range from internal penalties, reduced promotions, pulled schedules, mandatory public apologies, to, in extreme cases, contract termination. We've seen this play out in real time. In 2018, when Hyuna and E'Dawn of Pentagon were confirmed to be dating, their agency, Cube Entertainment, initially suspended them and later terminated their contracts entirely. The message sent across the industry was loud and clear. Dating, especially when it becomes public without agency approval, can cost you everything. JYP has handled its own situations with varying degrees of control. When Twice's Jihyo was revealed to be dating Kang Daniel in 2019, JYP's official response was carefully measured. They confirmed it, managed the narrative, and moved on. But behind the scenes, that kind of revelation still triggers internal review. The agency has to assess fan reaction, stock impact, brand deal stability, and long-term group dynamics. It's a business calculation as much as a personal one. For Stray Kids specifically, the stakes are even higher. By 2023, Stray Kids had become JYP's single biggest revenue driver. Their world tours alone, like the Maniac Tour in 2022 and the 5-Star Tour in 2023, grossed hundreds of millions of dollars across Asia, North America, Europe, and Australia. Album sales consistently placed them in the top tier globally, with 5-Star selling over 6.18 million copies in South Korea alone within its first month of release, according to Honto chart data, making it one of the best-selling K-pop albums in history at the time. When a group generates that level of revenue, the agency's protective instincts go into overdrive. Any risk to public image is a risk to the bottom line. So the members of Stray Kids aren't just following rules because they're told to, they're operating inside a system where the consequences of stepping out of line are visible, documented, and career-altering. They've watched it happen to others. They know how the math works, and they've made a calculated decision, whether fully by choice or partially by pressure, to keep their personal lives sealed shut. But here's what makes this more than just a corporate compliance story. The members themselves have never publicly complained about these restrictions. In fact, several of them, Bong Chan and Lee No in particular, have made comments during fan interactions suggesting that they genuinely understand and accept the trade-off. It's not that they're being silenced, it's that they've internalized the logic so deeply that the line between personal choice and institutional expectation has blurred. That's the foundation: the contract, the culture, the consequences. But contracts only explain part of the story, because even without a single clause in a legal document, there's something else that keeps idols from going public with their relationships, something they didn't read in a rulebook but witnessed with their own eyes. And that's exactly what we're getting into next.
Number 6. Trauma from other idols' dating scandals they witnessed themselves. Rules on paper are one thing, but watching someone's career implode in real time because a paparazzi photo surfaced at 2 in the morning, that leaves a mark no contract clause ever could. The Stray Kids members didn't grow up in a vacuum. They trained alongside other idols, ate in the same cafeterias, shared practice rooms, and watched the Korean entertainment news cycle chew people up and spit them out over something as ordinary as holding someone's hand. And the cases they witnessed weren't hypothetical cautionary tales. They were real people, colleagues, sunbaes, friends, whose lives changed overnight because of a dating revelation. Let's start with one of the most seismic examples, Baekhyun and Taeyeon. In June 2014, Dispatch, South Korea's most notorious entertainment news outlet, essentially the TMZ of K-pop, published photos of EXO's Baekhyun and Girls' Generation's Taeyeon on a late-night car date. The fallout was immediate and brutal.
Baekhyun's Instagram was flooded with tens of thousands of hate comments within hours. Fans organized mass unfollowing campaigns. EXO fan forums fractured into factions, those who supported him and those who felt personally betrayed. Baekhyun later said in a public letter that the experience was one of the most painful periods of his life. And this was Baekhyun, a member of EXO, one of the biggest groups in K-pop history. If someone at that level could be shaken that badly, imagine what a younger, less established idol would internalize watching it unfold. The Stray Kids members debuted in 2018. By that point, the members had already lived through years of industry scandals during their trainee period. Bang Chan entered JYP in 2010. That means he was inside the system when the Baekhyun-Taeyeon scandal broke. He was training when the next wave hit too. In 2019, Dispatch confirmed that Kang Daniel and Twice's Jihyo were dating. Now, Jihyo is a JYP artist, the same agency as Stray Kids. This wasn't some distant news story. This was happening inside their own company. The reaction was split. Some fans were supportive, but a significant and vocal portion of both fandoms erupted. Korean online communities like Pon and The Coup were filled with posts dissecting the relationship, questioning Jihyo's professionalism, and attacking Kang Daniel's fans for being too lenient. The couple eventually broke up in November 2019, with multiple outlets citing the intense public pressure as a contributing factor. The Stray Kids members would have watched this unfold in their own building among people they knew personally. Then came the case that arguably sent the loudest warning signal to every idol in the industry: Chen of EXO. In January 2020, Chen published a handwritten letter announcing that he was in a relationship and that his girlfriend was pregnant. He wasn't caught by Dispatch. He came forward on his own terms, openly and honestly. And the response? A subset of EXO's fan base launched a coordinated campaign demanding his removal from the group. They sent protest trucks, actual physical trucks with LED screens displaying their demands, to SM Entertainment's headquarters. They organized petitions, boycotted merchandise, and pressured the agency to act. SM refused to remove Chen, and he remained in EXO, but the emotional damage was done. Here was a man who did everything right. He was honest, he was respectful, he was an adult making adult decisions, and he was still punished for it by a portion of the people who claimed to love him. That case specifically resonated across the entire fourth-generation idol landscape. Multiple industry commentators noted at the time that Chen's situation would make younger idols even more reluctant to be transparent about their personal lives. If honesty gets you a truck parked outside your company demanding your termination, what exactly is the incentive to come forward? And it didn't stop there. In 2021, photos of Twice's Momo and Super Junior's Heechul circulated online, and despite both being adults in a confirmed relationship, the commentary sections were relentless. When Jennie of Blackpink and BTS's V had their dating rumors intensify through leaked photos in 2022 and 2023, the situation escalated to the point where legal action was taken over hacked private images. Jennie's agency, YG Entertainment, and later her own label, Odd Atelier, filed complaints. The invasion of privacy was staggering, and yet a significant portion of the online discourse wasn't about the invasion itself, but whether the idols should have been more careful. Now, put yourself in the shoes of a Stray Kids member. You're in your early to mid-20s, you've spent your entire adolescence and young adulthood inside an industry that treats romantic relationships as potential career grenades. You've watched a JYP Sunbae's relationship become tabloid fodder inside your own agency. You've seen an EXO member get protest trucks for being honest about starting a family. You've watched Blackpink's Jennie have her private photos stolen and distributed, and instead of universal sympathy, she got scrutiny. What lesson do you take from all of this? The lesson is simple and devastating. The industry does not forgive idols for being human, and the fans, not all of them, but enough of them, will turn on you faster than any news cycle if you disrupt the fantasy. The Stray Kids members aren't paranoid. They're observant. They've done the math. They've watched careers get derailed, mental health deteriorate, and public images crumble, not because the idols did anything wrong, but because they dared to have a personal life. When Bang Chan sits on a V-Live at midnight talking to fans, when Hyunjin posts a painting on Instagram, when Han cracks jokes on a variety show, each of those moments exists in a space where the members have consciously decided what they will and won't share, and romance sits firmly on the side marked "too dangerous." This isn't cowardice, it's pattern recognition. They've studied the data, not in a spreadsheet, but in the broken careers and public humiliations of people they trained beside, grew up with, and respected. But even if the industry cleaned up tomorrow and scandals stopped mattering, there's still a practical barrier that most fans rarely think about, one that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the clock.
Number 5. Crazy schedules that leave no time for love. Let's set aside the industry politics, the agency rules, and the scandal history for a moment. Even if none of that existed, even if JYP Entertainment handed every member a written permission slip to date whoever they wanted, there's a fundamental, almost mathematical problem standing in the way. These 8 men barely have time to sleep, let alone sustain a relationship. To understand why, you need to see what a Stray Kids year actually looks like from the inside. Not the highlight reels fans see on YouTube, not the polished behind-the-scenes clips on SKZ Zoo or SKZ Talker, the actual, unfiltered workload. Start with music production. Stray Kids are not a group that simply receives songs from outside producers, learns them, and performs. They are one of the most prolific self-producing acts in K-pop. The unit 3 Racha, Bangchan, Changbin, and Han serves as the group's core songwriting and production team. These 3 members are involved in writing lyrics, composing melodies, arranging tracks, and overseeing production for nearly every song on every album. According to the Korea Music Copyright Association, KOMCA, Bangchan alone has over 200 songwriting credits registered to his name. Changbin and Han each carry well over 150. That volume of output doesn't happen in spare afternoons. It requires hundreds and hundreds of studio hours per year, late nights, weekends, sessions squeezed between schedules that are already packed wall to wall. Now look at their release cadence. In 2023 alone, Stray Kids released 5 Star in June and Rockstar in November, both full-scale comeback projects with title tracks, B-sides, music video productions, concept photo shoots, and the full promotional cycle that accompanies each release in K-pop. A single comeback cycle in the Korean music industry typically involves 2 to 3 weeks of dense television appearances, performing on music shows like M Countdown, Music Bank, Inkigayo, and Show Music Core multiple times per week, plus radio interviews, variety show guest spots, magazine shoots, and online content drops. Multiply that by 2 major releases in 1 year, and you've already consumed months of calendar time on promotions alone. Then layer on the touring. Stray Kids' touring schedule since 2022 has been nothing short of relentless. The Maniac World Tour, which ran from April 2022 into 2023, covered cities across South Korea, Japan, the United States, Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and more, spanning dozens of individual concert dates. Before the dust had settled, the 5-star Dome Tour launched in Japan in late 2023, hitting massive venues like Tokyo Dome and Osaka's Kyocera Dome. Then, in 2024, their Dominate World Tour expanded even further, covering stadiums and arenas across multiple continents. Each concert isn't just a 2-hour show. It requires days of rehearsal, sound checks, travel between cities, post-show recovery, and logistical coordination. When a group is playing back-to-back shows across different time zones, the human body is essentially running on adrenaline and willpower. And that's just the headline-level stuff.
Beneath the albums and the tours is an entire ecosystem of content that Stray Kids maintain year-round. There's Chan's Room, Bong Chan's late-night V-Live sessions where he talks directly to fans, often streaming past midnight Korean time. There's the group's reality content for platforms like YouTube and Mnet. There's the SKZ Code variety series. There are fan signing events, both in-person and virtual, where the group interacts individually with hundreds of fans across multiple sessions. There are brand endorsement obligations, including campaigns for companies like Nacific, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi, which require separate photo shoots, commercial filming, and appearance commitments. Stack all of this together and you start to see the actual shape of a Stray Kids member's year. It's not a job with weekends off. It's not even a job with predictable hours. It's a rolling, overlapping sequence of commitments that fills nearly every waking hour across every month. Several members have alluded to this reality in their own words. During fan interactions and live broadcasts, Han has mentioned struggling with fatigue and the emotional toll of maintaining energy across packed schedules. Bong Chan, who is known for staying up late in the studio even after full days of group activities, has talked about running on minimal sleep so frequently that fans have genuinely expressed concern about his health. Lee No, during a fan call, once joked that his most consistent relationship is with his 3 cats because they're the only ones still awake when he gets home. The humor masks something real. Maintaining a romantic relationship requires time, not just physical presence, but emotional bandwidth, the capacity to be present, to communicate, to invest in another person's needs alongside your own. Psychologists who study relationship maintenance consistently identify time spent together and emotional availability as 2 foundational pillars of healthy partnerships. When your schedule is dictated by a management team, a tour logistics company, and a recording studio calendar, both of those pillars become almost impossible to sustain. And it's not just about total hours, it's about predictability. A normal relationship benefits from routine, regular dinners, shared weekends, the ability to plan even a few days ahead. Stray Kids schedules can shift on short notice. A comeback date gets moved up, a concert gets added, a filming commitment lands on what was supposed to be a rest day. That kind of unpredictability makes it difficult to maintain friendships, let alone a romantic relationship that requires sustained attention and care. And there's also the geographical reality. When a group is touring internationally for months at a time, they're not in one place long enough to build or maintain the kind of proximity that most relationships need. You can video call from a hotel room in Sao Paulo or Chicago, but anyone who's tried long distance knows that technology only bridges so much of the gap. Some fans argue that other idols manage to date despite similar schedules, and that's true, but it's worth noting that many of those relationships that have come to light involved idols during less intensive periods of their careers, between comebacks, during military service, or after their group's peak activity years. Stray Kids, as of the mid-2020s, are in the most intense phase of their career. They're not winding down, they're accelerating. Every year has been bigger than the last. More countries, more albums, more content, more commitments. The window for personal life hasn't opened. If anything, it's narrowing. So when fans wonder why there's never a dating rumor, part of the answer is painfully simple. When would it even happen? Between the 3 a.m. studio session and the 7 a.m. flight to the next tour stop? During the 14-minute break between a fan signing and a photo shoot? The schedule doesn't leave room for secrets, because it barely leaves room for rest. But even if time somehow opened up, even if a member found a way to carve out space for someone special, there's another force at play that might matter more than contracts, scandals, or calendars combined. And it has everything to do with the people who are already waiting for them.
Number 4. They consider stay as their top priority. In K-pop, every group says they love their fans. It's practically written into the playbook. You thank them at award shows, you blow kisses at concerts, you say the fandom name with affection during interviews. It's expected. But with Stray Kids and Stay, the dynamic operates on a level that goes beyond standard idol fan protocol. And understanding that dynamic is essential to understanding why the members guard their personal lives so carefully. First, some context on what STAY actually represents. The fandom name was officially announced on August 1, 2018, just a few months after the group's debut. The name carries a deliberate meaning. STAY represents the idea that fans stay with Stray Kids, and together they form a complete unit. The group's own messaging has consistently reinforced this framework, not as a slogan, but as an operating philosophy. In their words, Stray Kids without STAY is incomplete. That might sound like marketing language on the surface, but when you trace the group's actual history, the sentiment starts to look a lot more literal than symbolic. Stray Kids did not debut as an instant hit. Their formation story itself was unusually public and emotionally raw. Before their official debut, JYP Entertainment aired a reality show, also called Stray Kids, in late 2017, where the members had to prove they deserved to debut as a group. 2 members were temporarily eliminated during the show before being brought back. The process was stressful, public, and formative. The fans who watched that show in real time, who voted, who trended hashtags, who showed up to support these trainees before they even had an official fandom name, became the foundation of STAY. The group didn't inherit a massive pre-built audience the way some Big Four debuts do. They built their fanbase brick by brick, and both sides remember that. This shared origin story created a bond with genuine emotional weight. When Stray Kids won Kingdom, Legendary War on Net in June 2021, beating established senior groups like BTOB, iKON, SF9, The Boys, and ATEEZ, the victory was widely credited not just to the group's performances but to the dedicated streaming, voting, and organizing power of STAY. The win was a turning point. It elevated Stray Kids' domestic profile significantly and opened doors to larger venues, bigger brand deals, and mainstream Korean recognition that had previously been slower to come compared to their international popularity. The members acknowledged this openly. In their acceptance speech and in subsequent interviews, they directly stated that STAY made the win possible. That pattern has repeated at every milestone. When Ordinary debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 in March 2022, making Stray Kids only the 3rd K-pop act in history to achieve that at the time, after BTS and Super M, the members' first public reaction was directed at STAY. Bang Chan addressed it on his V Live, visibly emotional, telling fans that the achievement belonged to them. When 5-Star broke first-week sales records in 2023, when Rockstar charted globally, when concert venues scaled from arenas to stadiums, each time, the group's messaging centered STAY as co-authors of the success, not just passive consumers of it. Now, here's where this connects to the question of dating. In K-pop's ecosystem, the relationship between idol and fan operates within what sociologists and media researchers call a parasocial framework. Fans invest not just money, through album purchases, concert tickets, merchandise, and platform subscriptions, but significant emotional energy into their connection with idols. They celebrate the group's wins as personal victories. They feel the group's hardships as personal pain. And whether anyone likes to admit it or not, a meaningful portion of that emotional investment is tied to a sense of exclusivity, the feeling that the idol's affection, attention, and emotional availability belong, at least partially, to the fan. This is not a flaw in the fans. It's a structural feature of how the K-pop industry has designed the idol-fan relationship. From paid messaging platforms like Bubble, where fans pay a monthly subscription to receive personal feeling text messages from their favorite idols, to intimate fan signing events where members hold hands with individual fans and speak to them one-on-one, the entire infrastructure is built to cultivate closeness. Stray Kids participate actively in all of these channels. Every member uses Bubble regularly. Chan's room sessions often run for an hour or more, with Bang Chan reading fan comments, playing music fans request, and speaking in a tone that feels genuinely conversational rather than performative. These aren't obligations the members sleepwalk through. Multiple members have described these interactions as among the most meaningful parts of their work. So when a member of Stray Kids considers going public with a relationship, or even risks being caught in one, they're not just thinking about agency rules or tabloid headlines. They're thinking about the millions of people who have emotionally invested in them, who have organized streaming parties at 3 a.m. to push a music video past a view count milestone, who have spent their own money to buy multiple album copies to boost chart numbers, who have tattooed the group's logo on their skin. The members know, with full clarity, what Stay has sacrificed and contributed to get them where they are. And the members have said this plainly. Changbin once stated during a fan event that Stay is the reason Stray Kids can stand on stage. Not figuratively, literally. Without the sales, the streams, the attendance, the group doesn't get booked for the next tour, the next comeback, the next television appearance. The K-pop industry is unforgiving in its metrics. Groups that lose fan engagement lose opportunities. The members understand this transaction not as something cold and commercial, but as a relationship built on mutual commitment. In that context, revealing a romantic partner publicly doesn't just risk a scandal. It risks fracturing the trust of a community that the members genuinely care about and depend on. It's not that Stay would unanimously reject them. Many fans are vocal about supporting the members' right to date. But the members also know that even a partial fracture, even losing 10 or 15% of their active fan base, can have cascading effects on chart performance, tour attendance, and the group's overall trajectory. They've seen it happen to others. So they make a choice. Not because Stay demands it explicitly. Not because fans hold them hostage. But because the members themselves have decided that the relationship they've built with their audience is something they refuse to jeopardize. Stay isn't just a fandom to them. It's the foundation everything else stands on. And you don't gamble with your foundation. But even Stay, as powerful as that bond is, isn't the only external force shaping the members' decisions. There's an entire cultural landscape surrounding them, one rooted in centuries of social expectation, that adds yet another layer of pressure most international fans never fully see. Number 3. The pressure of Korean culture is still very strong. Everything we've discussed so far, the contracts, the scandals, the schedules, the fan relationships, all of it exists within a larger framework that shapes every decision an idol makes. That framework is Korean culture itself. And to understand why Stray Kids navigate their personal lives the way they do, you need to understand the societal machinery operating beneath the surface of the K-pop industry. South Korea is a nation where Confucian values have shaped social behavior for over 5 centuries. Neo-Confucianism became the state ideology of the Joseon dynasty in 1392, and its principles, respect for hierarchy, emphasis on collective harmony over individual desire, the importance of maintaining social face, didn't disappear when the dynasty ended. They evolved. They adapted. And they remain deeply embedded in modern Korean society, influencing everything from how people address their elders to how public figures are expected to behave. In this cultural context, the concept of kimayan, roughly translated as face or social reputation, carries enormous weight. For ordinary citizens, losing face can affect personal and professional relationships. For public figures, and especially for idols, losing face can be existential. Korean society holds its celebrities to a standard of conduct that goes far beyond talent. Idols are expected to be role models, polite, humble, hardworking, and, crucially, romantically unattached during the peak of their visibility. This expectation isn't written in law. It's enforced through something far more powerful, collective social judgment. That judgment plays out primarily in South Korea's uniquely intense online culture. Korean internet communities like NatePan, Veku, DC Inside, and various Naver forum boards function as real-time public courts of opinion. When a celebrity's dating news breaks, these platforms erupt within minutes. Threads analyzing every detail, the location, the time, what the idol was wearing, whether they looked too comfortable, accumulate thousands of comments within hours. And unlike Western social media where discourse tends to be fragmented across platforms, Korean online communities are concentrated and highly organized. A negative consensus on Pan or the coup can set the tone for mainstream media coverage, which in turn influences public perception, which in turn affects an idol's commercial viability. This cycle is self-reinforcing. Korean media outlets, from entertainment news sites like Dispatch, Sports Chosen, and sports news to mainstream broadcasters, understand that dating news generates massive engagement. Dispatch, in particular, has built its entire business model around this reality. The outlet is known for its practice of surveilling celebrities for weeks or months, gathering photographic evidence, and then publishing relationship reveals at strategically chosen moments. For years, Dispatch maintained an informal tradition of dropping a major celebrity couple revelation on January 1st, a New Year's gift to the public that guaranteed viral coverage. The fact that an entire media company can sustain itself primarily on dating exposés tells you everything about how Korean society consumes and responds to this type of information. For Stray Kids, this cultural environment creates pressure that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. On the most visible level, there's the awareness that any dating revelation will be dissected by Korean media with forensic intensity. Every photo will be analyzed. Every timeline will be reconstructed. Every past statement they've made about relationships will be pulled from archives and recontextualized. Korean netizens have a well-documented history of cross-referencing idol social media posts, airport sighting logs, and even accessory choices to build circumstantial cases about who might be dating whom. The level of scrutiny is extraordinary in its precision. But beneath the media layer, there's a deeper cultural current. In Korean society, idols occupy a unique social category. They're not viewed the same way Western pop stars are. In the West, a musician's personal life is generally considered separate from their professional output. Fans might gossip about it, but it rarely threatens the artist's career fundamentals. In Korea, the idol system was explicitly designed to create figures who embody an aspirational ideal. That ideal includes availability, not necessarily romantic availability in a literal sense, but the perception that the idol's emotional world is accessible to fans. Dating disrupts that perception. It introduces a real person into a space that the fan had filled with their own emotional projection. And in a culture where collective feeling carries more weight than individual expression, that disruption is treated as a breach of an unspoken social contract. This cultural dynamic also intersects with gender and age expectations in ways that add further complexity. Korean society, while rapidly modernizing, still carries traditional views about when and how young people should pursue romantic relationships. For men in their 20s, which is where most Stray Kids members currently sit, there's an additional layer of expectation tied to military service. All able-bodied Korean men are required to serve approximately 18 to 21 months of mandatory military service, typically before age 30. The cultural narrative around male idols often frames their pre-military years as a period that should be devoted entirely to career achievement, with personal life deferred until after service or later. This isn't a formal rule, but it's a widely held social expectation that adds yet another reason for young male idols to keep romantic relationships invisible. International fans sometimes struggle to understand the intensity of these cultural pressures because they're viewing the situation through a different social lens. In surveys and online polls conducted among K-pop fan communities, international fans consistently show higher acceptance of idol dating compared to Korean fans. A frequently cited online survey by Korean media outlet Star Today found that while a majority of international respondents said they would support their favorite idol dating, Korean respondents were significantly more divided, with a substantial portion expressing discomfort or conditional disapproval. The gap between these two perspectives is not about one group being more reasonable than the other. It's about fundamentally different cultural operating systems producing different expectations for the same public figures. For the members of Stray Kids, this means existing in a space where their Korean fanbase, which remains their commercial and cultural home base regardless of their global expansion, holds expectations that are measurably stricter than what their international fans might consider normal. The members can't simply follow the more permissive international standard because their careers, their agency, their music show appearances, their domestic brand deals, and their cultural standing are all anchored in Korea. The Korean public's judgment carries disproportionate professional consequences. So the members don't just hide their relationships from one audience. They navigate a cultural landscape where the very act of being romantically involved, if made visible, places them in conflict with deeply held societal expectations that have been reinforced across generations. But cultural pressure, as heavy as it is, still operates at a societal level. It's abstract. It's systemic. What we're about to discuss next is something far more personal, a reason rooted not in what society expects of them, but in what their own hearts demand. And honestly, it might be the most quietly devastating thing on this entire list. Number 2, they don't want the people they love to become targets of hate. Every reason we've covered so far has been about the members themselves, their careers, their fans, their cultural environment. But this one is different. This isn't about protecting stray kids. This is about protecting someone else. Someone who never signed up for any of this. When an idol's relationship becomes public, the spotlight doesn't just land on the idol. It lands on the other person. And for that person, whether they're a celebrity, a trainee, or an ordinary private citizen, the experience can be devastating in ways that most people watching from outside the industry never fully grasp. Let's talk about what actually happens when a partner is identified. The first wave is digital. Within hours of a dating revelation, Korean and international fans begin searching for every available piece of information about the partner. If the person has any social media presence, their accounts are located and flooded, sometimes with curiosity, often with hostility. Their photos are screenshotted, reposted, analyzed, and mocked. Their appearance is compared to the idols. Their background is researched. Their family members' social media is sometimes found and contacted. If the person is not a public figure, this process essentially transforms a private individual into a public target overnight, without their consent. This isn't speculation. It's documented. When Baekhyun and Taeyeon's relationship was revealed in 2014, Taeyeon, herself one of the most famous female idols in K-pop history, was subjected to a torrent of online abuse so severe that she later spoke about its impact on her mental health during a televised appearance. If Taeyeon, with all the resources and support systems of SM Entertainment behind her, was that affected, consider what a non-celebrity partner would face. An ordinary person with no media training, no PR team, no security detail, and no experience managing public hostility on that scale. When Chin of EXO announced his relationship and upcoming marriage in January 2020, the backlash extended directly to his partner. Despite Chen's deliberate choice to reveal the relationship on his own terms, calmly, respectfully, through a handwritten letter, segments of the fanbase directed anger not just at him but at the woman he was starting a family with. Online forums produced threads speculating about her identity, and once details began circulating, the commentary turned personal and cruel. She was a private citizen who had done nothing except fall in love with someone famous, and she became a subject of public dissection. But the online dimension is only part of the picture. There's a physical reality that makes this situation genuinely dangerous: saseing fans. The word saseing comes from the Korean term meaning private life. Saseing fans are individuals who obsessively pursue access to idols' private lives, often crossing legal and ethical boundaries to do so. Their methods are well documented by Korean media and law enforcement. They follow idols to their homes, track their vehicles, hack into personal phone records, bribe staff at agencies and hotels for schedule information, and in some cases, physically infiltrate private spaces. Stray Kids have experienced saseing behavior firsthand. Multiple members have addressed it publicly. Bang Chan has spoken on V Live about saseing fans calling his personal phone number, a number that should be private, and has asked them to stop. Other members have reported being followed in cars, encountering fans who show up at non-public locations, and receiving messages that reveal knowledge of private schedules they never shared publicly. In 2020, JYP Entertainment issued an official statement warning that legal action would be taken against sightseeing fans who continued to violate the members' privacy, including those who attempted to board the same flights as the group by obtaining their travel itineraries through unofficial channels. Now imagine introducing a romantic partner into this environment. If sightseeing fans are already capable of obtaining an idol's personal phone number and flight schedule, identifying and locating a partner would be a significantly lower barrier. The partner's home address, workplace, daily routine, all of it becomes vulnerable the moment their identity is even partially known. This isn't a theoretical risk. It's a logical extension of behavior that is already happening. And there's a dimension to this that goes beyond harassment into something much darker. South Korea has confronted the consequences of unchecked online cruelty against public figures in ways that shook the entire nation. In October 2019, Sully, former member of the group FX, under SM Entertainment, was found dead at her home at the age of 25. She had endured years of relentless cyberbullying, much of it tied to her refusal to conform to the behavioral expectations Korean society placed on female idols. She spoke openly about her personal life, her relationships, and her mental health, and for each act of openness, she was met with a corresponding wave of online cruelty. Just weeks later, in November 2019, Gu Hara, former member of Kara, also passed away at age 28, after similarly enduring years of cyberbullying and a highly publicized, traumatic legal battle with an ex-partner who had threatened to release private footage of her. These losses were not abstract for the K-pop community. They were personal. Idols across the industry mourned publicly. The Korean government held parliamentary hearings on cyberbullying. Legislation was proposed, and some reforms were enacted, including Sully's Law, which sought to strengthen protections against malicious online comments. But the cultural infrastructure that enables this behavior, the anonymity of online platforms, the intensity of parasocial investment, the speed at which mobs form, has not fundamentally changed. The Stray Kids members were active in the industry when Sully and Gu Hara died. They witnessed the aftermath in real time. They understood, with painful clarity, that the people connected to idols romantically, personally, in any capacity, are not shielded from the worst impulses of online culture. If anything, they're more exposed, because they lack the institutional protections that agencies provide to their artists. So when a Stray Kids member chooses to keep a relationship hidden, the calculation isn't just about self-preservation. It's about looking at the person they care about and recognizing that going public could fundamentally alter that person's life, their safety, their mental health, their ability to walk down a street without being photographed and discussed by strangers. The members know what this industry does to the people caught in its gaze. They've seen the evidence. They've attended the funerals. Hiding a relationship in this context isn't about shame or secrecy. It's an act of care so deliberate that it requires the person doing the hiding to absorb the full weight of silence, every unshared moment, every public denial, every smile given to a camera while their personal truth stays locked away, all so that someone they love can live a normal life. That, more than any contract or company rule, is what keeps the silence in place. But there is still one more reason. The one at the very top of this list. And it's not about fear or protection at all, it's about purpose. Number 1, they are building a legacy bigger than just love. Everything on this list so far has been about external forces, contracts, scandals, schedules, fans, culture, protection. All valid. All real. But the number 1 reason sits somewhere deeper than any of those. It's internal. It's a choice the members have made not because someone told them to, but because they decided, individually and collectively, that the window they're standing in right now is too rare and too valuable to spend on anything other than the thing they came here to do. Stray Kids are not building a discography. They're building a legacy. And the difference between those two things is everything. To understand the scale of what they're constructing, look at the numbers first. Since their debut in 2018, Stray Kids have released a volume of music that outpaces the majority of their peers in any generation. By mid-2024, their official Korean discography included 9 mini-albums, 3 full-length studio albums, and multiple special releases, each containing songs predominantly written, composed, and produced by the members themselves through the 3-Racha unit. That level of creative ownership is rare in K-pop, where many top-tier groups perform material developed primarily by external production teams. Stray Kids' insistence on self-production isn't a marketing angle. It's a foundational artistic principle that Bang Chan established from the group's formation. And the commercial results of that principle speak for themselves. Ordinary debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 in March 2022. Maxident hit number 1 in October 2022. 5 Star reached number 1 in June 2023. 3 consecutive number 1 albums on the world's most competitive music chart. At the time, no other K-pop group besides BTS had achieved that streak. Their cumulative album sales crossed tens of millions of copies globally. Their concert tours scaled from mid-sized venues to stadiums and domes across multiple continents. Each metric didn't just grow, it compounded. Year over year, the trajectory pointed in only one direction. But numbers alone don't make a legacy. What makes a legacy is impact, the kind that changes what's possible for the people who come after you. And Stray Kids are actively reshaping what a K-pop group can be. Their music is one dimension of this. In an industry where safe, trend-following releases are the commercial norm, Stray Kids have consistently pushed into territory that challenges listener expectations. Their title tracks blend genres in ways that initially polarized audiences but ultimately expanded the sonic palette of mainstream K-pop. God's Menu in 2020, with its aggressive production and rapid-fire rap sections, became a defining track of fourth-generation K-pop and helped establish the noise music subgenre, a term critics used dismissively but fans reclaimed as an identity marker. Thunderous in 2021 fused traditional Korean musical elements with hard-hitting electronic production, a combination that demonstrated how K-pop could honor cultural roots while pushing forward sonically. S-Class in 2023 and CHK Boom in 2024 showed they could pivot toward more accessible production without sacrificing the intensity that defines their artistic identity. Beyond the music itself, Stray Kids have built something equally significant, a philosophy. From their earliest days, the group's messaging has centered on themes of self-acceptance, resilience, and the value of being different. Their name itself, Stray Kids, was chosen to represent young people who feel lost, out of place, or disconnected from the mainstream. Their catchphrase, Stray Kids everywhere all around the world, you make Stray Kids stay, isn't just a concert chant. It's a statement of mutual belonging between a group of outcasts and the community of people who found themselves reflected in that identity. This messaging has translated into tangible cultural influence. Stray Kids' fanbase includes a disproportionately high number of fans who describe the group's music and message as personally meaningful to their mental health and sense of identity. Academic researchers studying K-pop fan communities have noted that Stay, as a fandom, frequently engages in organized mental health awareness campaigns, charity drives, and peer support initiatives, activities that reflect the values the group itself promotes. The members haven't just built an audience. They've catalyzed a community with its own internal culture of care. And the members know exactly how finite this moment is. Bang Chan, who is the oldest member at 27 years old as of 2024, has spoken openly about his awareness that an idol's peak career window is limited. Military service obligations will eventually require the Korean members to enlist, creating an inevitable hiatus period. The global music industry's attention cycle is unforgiving, new groups debut constantly, and staying at the top requires relentless output and reinvention. Every year at this level is a year that has to count for something permanent. This is where the personal sacrifice becomes most visible. When Han stays in the studio past midnight revising a verse for the 4th time, He's not doing it because a manager told him to. He's doing it because the song needs to be right, because this particular album, this particular era, might be the one people remember in 15 years. When Hyunjin choreographs his own dance sequences with obsessive precision, it's because he understands that a performance at this level, captured on video, becomes part of a permanent record. When Felix records fan messages with genuine warmth at 3 in the morning, when Lee No pushes through physical exhaustion to deliver a flawless stage, when Changbin writes rap verses that document the group's emotional journey in real time, when Seungmin refines his vocals to hit every note with clarity, when I.N brings energy to every schedule regardless of fatigue, all of it feeds into the same project. A body of work that will outlast the schedules, the trends, and the headlines. Romantic love, in this framework, isn't rejected. It's deferred. The members have never said they don't want love. What they've demonstrated, through years of consistent action, is that they've decided this chapter of their lives belongs to something else. They are aware, with a maturity that belies their age, that the opportunity to stand where they stand, to reach the audience they reach, to create the art they create, is historically unusual. Groups at this level of global influence in K-pop can be counted on one hand. The members of Stray Kids know they are one of those hands. And so they invest. Every hour that could go toward a date goes toward a demo. Every emotional reserve that could fuel a private relationship fuels a performance instead. Not because love doesn't matter, but because they've identified something they can give to the world that nobody else can give in quite the same way, and they've decided to give it everything before the window closes. That's not sacrifice born from obligation. That's sacrifice born from vision. And the difference between the two is the difference between an idol who follows the rules and an artist who is building something that will still matter long after the stage lights go dark.